You know, it is Easter time and Easter Day, and you know, Easter, like Christmas, in my opinion, it holds very deep symbolism. And I think most of us know that, but I don't think people really understand the layers and levels of all of this. You know, I think human beings tend to take things for granted and not understand. It's not just Easter. It's also springtime. But you know, people all over the planet, pagan people, for example, what they call pagans and so on, earth religions, they celebrated spring long before there was a Jesus, who then we attach the idea of crucifixion and all that to Easter time. There were already people celebrating Easter because it meant it's a time of here comes spring. Here comes, meaning here comes your new life. And then humans just tend to take things for granted. We take people for granted, but we take things for granted. Oh, it's springtime. I'm going, oh, that's nice. Originally, it's like, woohoo! Now it's, you know, oh, okay, great. And then we forget spring and that it means something. We go, oh, Easter. And then we go, oh, we got to get baskets for the kids. Now pretty soon it's about stuff. We have to go and get a basket. I forgot to get a basket. And one of those bizarre nuclear waste spongy rabbit things that people eat at Easter. You know, I don't even know how those are made. Like you go. That's anyway. So how did we get to that? How did that? It used to be a ritual of people coming together going, life, you know, this is great. Springtime, life, here we go, new life, to these bizarre things. But there's a lot of very deep experiences awaiting us all. And human beings need to learn how to drop into a different level. See, Christmas is about the birthing. Even in the darkest times of the year, there's always life. Come on, we can do it. The birthing, you know, it's very deep. Easter is about rebirth. Easter's about not the hope of a new life, just the hope of a new life. It's the hope of a new life from the death of the old life. In a way, even deeper than Christmas symbolism. Christmas is like, you know, wow, isn't that beautiful? It's cute and lights and it's about birth. It's really beautiful. And a baby, you know, it's really much more gentle. The Easter one is about, oh, great, if I had to choose holidays, there's one where there's a little baby and a star over Bethlehem, peace and goodwill to mankind. You know, it's all so gentle and beautiful. Easter, you know, nail a guy to a cross. You know, if I had to choose holidays, we'd go Christmas, right? But this is the one that's the bigger one, the greater one in some respects. Because this is the one of the phoenix. It's said by many mystics, the deepest sign of the zodiac is Scorpio. Because Scorpio is the one where you go to the depths. And then when you do your work and we all have Scorpio in us, so it's not like the sign, it's the Scorpio part of us. It's the going into the depths. What you do there will determine how high you go. You know, if you just stay in your little hot air balloon and wait for it to lift, see how high it goes when you've got all kinds of anchors holding you to the earth. So you can only ascend as much as you are willing to descend, inscend into yourself and start pulling up the anchors, start cutting the ropes. Well, I don't really want to do too much work, so I'll just half chisel away or cut away one rope. And there's, let's say, 4. I'm going to half cut all of them. Where are you going? Why half? So die well. You know, that old saying, die well. Give your swan song, man. Here it goes. Sing your swan song. You know, divorce, death, all things that happen. Sing your swan song. Let the universe know I don't believe any of this crap on earth. Nothing has power over me. Forgive me, myself, for thinking it ever did. I was thinking I could never live. If living is without you. You know? I didn't think I could do it. I can't live. What a weird song, right? Like, oh my God. Codependence. And, you know, this is not your destiny. Instead, out of the fire. What's going to come next? Well, I'm going to survive. No, now you're reacting again. I'm going to prove to my ex that I can be. Now, you see, you're still reacting. That's still codependence. Because now you're going to prove you can do it. Prove it to who? Them, which means you're still hooked to them. No, I'm not. I don't like them. You're hooked. How much don't you like them? I totally don't like them. Excellent. That'll be 5 more lifetimes with them for you. You know? So how much do you not like him again? I'm starting to fall in love with them all over again. You know? And when you think I love them so I can be done with them, now that's 2 more lifetimes. It's not as bad as 5, but you're still hooked. We don't realize that our prayers work, but we're always praying. Our anger is a prayer. It's not a prayer in the sublime sense, but it's a statement to the universe. You don't realize that I really don't like that person means, and I'm praying to come back and be with them again so we can work this out. You would never want it to mean that. Then heal. Heal. Fine, I'm done with them. No, that's not actually a deep process of love and forgiveness. Our head, as long as our head is involved with the processes, you don't really go very far. It's got to be where I'm collapsed into I don't even know what to do. And now you can be taught. You see? Because you don't know what to do. When you think you know how to forgive, exactly the right way to forgive or release something, your head's still involved, which means you're going to measure how much you do. It's I don't even know. I don't even know why I have all these feelings. I don't know how these things happened. But I'm willing to say, today, to die, to crucify my relationship with you. I'm willing to let it die. Not in the victim crucify, oh, poor me, but rather I'm willing to let this die today. Let what die? Them. No. My opinions of them. My hurts, my reactions, because they're not really sweet yet. And that concept, the phoenix, that's the sublime. See, Scorpio is the only sign that has 3 symbols instead of just 2 animal symbols or whatever. It has 3, and the phoenix is the 3rd. So it's beautiful because instead of just having a lower nature to that sign and a higher nature, because they all have that. The lower nature of a sign, Sag or Cancer or whatever else, and a higher aspect. Scorpio has this extra one, the phoenix. It's the spiritual, metaphysical, beyond symbol, And we in our lives can recognize the time of Easter is, we heard the quote from A Course in Miracles. This is not a time of pain. It makes no sense. A crucified Christ, but that's a key word. A crucified Christ doesn't make sense, is what the quote from A Course in Miracles said. But the key words were a crucified Christ. Because the Christ, which is our divine self, cannot be crucified. But you have to crucify the human self to find the Christ. So we don't crucify Christ, but we do die of our old self. And it's always about the deeper symbolism. It's about dying of the old ego self. It doesn't mean, see, what we did was we took things literally in the Middle Ages, for example. When we said, okay, we want to be close to God, and to get close to God, let's see. In that time, we said the only way to be close to God, you have to be religious. And if you're religious, you have to be pious, you have to have no money, you have to, sacrifice. I mean, even in our generation, some of us were told by our parents, you have to sacrifice yourself. You have to be a victim. You have to stay married, even if you're miserable. Just look at your dad and I. We're as miserable can be. But we're good Catholics, or whatever the religion might be. We're doing what the Lord, if they're Christian, what the Lord wants us to do. Or some other religion, we're working out our karma. Whatever it happens to be. You have to stop and say, but wait. This is my opinion. Or my mom's or my dad's. This is just stupid human opinion. What does God want? Nobody asks. God, what is your will? God's like, are you kidding me? I've been wanting to tell you for a long time. I want you to be happy. What? And our first reaction is going to be anger because that's not what we were taught. You mean all this time I've been miserable? My job, I was told, well, just hang in there. That's what you learn to do, is you just tough it out. Suck it up. If you're on a sports field and you get hurt, they say, oh, suck it up. It's like, no, I'd rather get off the field. I broke a leg. Let me just get off the field. No, you can do it, buddy. No, God's like, you don't have to be in pain. Really? And what does that mean? Think about it. You don't have to have bills you can't pay. That's not God's will. Yes, it is. Doesn't God want us to learn to suffer? Isn't that some of the Bible? Yeah, some of the mistranslated parts of the Bible. Blessed are the meek. Okay, I really do feel blessed now that I'm meek. Blessed are those who are poor. Blessed are those who suffer. okay. And some people took it so literal that there was a whole sect of people in the Dark Ages whipping themselves, causing them to constantly bleed, because they're going, well, if I'm constantly bleeding, I'm really close to being like Jesus. Jesus is like, I'm not bleeding anymore. Why are you still doing it? And he's also saying, I only bled so that you won't have to. What's wrong with you people? You know, why don't you get it? I'm a resurrected Christ, not a crucified Jesus. And then he's telling us that's our destiny. That's everybody's destiny. You know, one of the main messages of the crucifixion, believe it or not, or the whole passion, the life of Jesus for that matter, is to show us that we are not humans. We're spirits. We just look like we're humans. And the human life is only to show us where our beliefs are still limited. That's all. The human drama is just to show us where we're still missing it. If you still think that your perfect diet's going to make you healthy, it's there to show you how you still think too much of your body. If you think that looking younger is going to make you what you really are, it just shows you where you're off. If you think you're not a great person because your children didn't get straight A's, all of these things are just showing you where you're off. Why? So you can feel bad about it? No. So you can make obvious adjustments. Wow, God, my children came home and they didn't have straight A's, and there was a part of me that sank. And then just say, what the heck is that about? Correct it. Find out what it's about and correct it. Because you're wrong. Their grades do not make who they are. I didn't get the raise I was looking for. That does not determine who you are. Yes, it does. You don't understand, Michael. That means the boss doesn't think that much of me. That's codependence again. Why do you care what the boss thinks of you? And that doesn't determine what the boss thinks. It just reflects on some level what you think. Because when you really understand who you are, you can't lack. And you don't need to judge other people and say, oh, I can see somebody's just a little out of alignment with Christ today because they got a flat tire. You don't judge people for being out of it. That doesn't do us any good. You know, sometimes I get a little passionate and I'll just speak to something that's really ridiculous. But I actually never feel it, what I'm saying. I never judge people. I can say hypocrisy is just lunacy. But I never actually hate anybody that's a hypocrite. I can speak about things, but I can look like I'm like intense about it, but I'm just saying the intensity to make a point. We can say something. We can correct things in our life and not judge ourselves for it. We can just say, God, you know, wow. I can't believe that I'm still falling prey a little bit to that addiction. But you don't have to actually believe that you're a weak person because you still succumb to addiction. Just see it for what it is. Kind of go, wow, isn't that weird? Here I am, a divine, powerful being, still thinking that having this or that addiction is what completes me, because it doesn't. So one apostle says, I die daily. It's not just on Easter. I die daily. I do lots of self-talk. You know, I'm in a self-observation, as Edgar Casey calls it. Watch yourself walk by, meaning take time every day to just observe self-talk. What are you doing today? The inner critic? Well, what do you talk? What do you know? Where's that coming from? Oh, you're getting older. Wait a second. So what? What does that have to do with anything? Well, you know, it could mean this, it could mean that. Where's that voice coming? That's not God. Where's that voice coming from? Learning to see it and discern and say, get behind me, Satan, metaphorically. You know, you have no purpose here. Your mother's voice, your father's voice, what you think is God's voice going, you know, you're not that spiritual, you're not meditating enough. God is never saying any of those things. So we learn to kind of clean things up a little bit. We can look at the metaphor of Jesus. But Jesus, you know, I speak about spirituality here. And we talk about Buddha and Mother Teresa and Jesus and so on, because I admire the goodness in people. I love. But then I'll tell you a story about some football coach. Because there's a moment that I hear at a biography or a story somebody tells me about the goodness of just an average person. I love that just as much as Jesus or Buddha or anybody else. When somebody was able to stick to their guns. When somebody says, God, Michael, you wouldn't believe it, but this miraculous thing happened. I was going through this totally challenging situation. And then I remembered that prayer you talked about. And I prayed it and I felt peace. I'm like, wow. I mean, I'm just in awe of something like that. See, it's not just saints or whatever that I admire. So we have to learn to see the goodness in ourselves and others and admire it. Because what happens is it then inflates it to a larger proportion. You see? It's like, wow, if they did it, I can do it. Now somebody else changes their life just because they heard a story about you. But at the same time, Jesus is a very unique being. The way he says it in A Course in Miracles is, in time, which is an illusion, in time, linear time, year after year, century after century, and so on, as far as time goes, history goes, I woke up before you. I did. I woke up before you. But since time's an illusion, I didn't. We all woke up the very second we went to sleep. The very second we forgot who we were, we all remembered. 1 second later, so to speak. So he's saying, in reality, I'm no different than you. And that's an important thing for us to understand on all kinds of levels, because it means, don't worry, if you have some issues with historic Jesus or historic religions that are Christ-oriented or Christian-oriented, I should say, it's okay. I'm not going to say, don't you feel that way, that's bad, and you're going to go to hell. I don't buy that at all. You struggle with the Jesus stuff, you struggle with Christianity, I totally get it. I think Jesus probably has issues with Christianity for that matter. I'm kidding, but it's that twisted, obviously. But our job isn't to stay stuck on what's been twisted about the teachings of Jesus. Let's try to put all that stuff aside for a moment. It's Easter after all. So let's put all that stuff aside, all our opinions. Some people try to be nice and safe. They go, well, yeah, I admire Jesus. Gandhi, the Pope, Santa Claus, my next door neighbor, and you try to equal them all, and they're not. It's great and it's honorable for us to recognize and honor those people who've chosen to live the life to wake up. So don't just say, well, Jesus is on earth, Jesus is just as wise as anybody else and they're just as wise as him. Don't confuse him with Socrates. Socrates was a wise philosopher. He was not a mystic per se, but even more so, he was not a divine master. Socrates will incarnate again. Jesus will not. Even Buddha died and did not resurrect himself, and Jesus did. So as much as we have great teachers in history, indulge me today for a moment just to say that Jesus plays a unique role because of his ability to know who he is, truly know who he is, which is God. I am so filled with the presence of God, go ahead and kill me, and I'll prove to you I can resurrect right after. What is that? Well, it's just cool, just to show you I can do it. No, it's to say, if I can resurrect my body, you can resurrect from your marriage after the death of a marriage. You can resurrect after the loss of a job. If I can get this body, you stab it and beat it up and, kill it, and I can make it come back to life, it proves you're immune to anything of this world. Because according to the old law, the wages of sin are death. That's the Old Testament and Torah. The wages of sin are death. Now you think that's just from Judaism or from Christianity. It isn't. Even the other religions of the Far East that say you die and you have to be reincarnated, why do you think they say you have to be reincarnated? Because you've sinned. You made a mistake and you have to come back and get it right. You see? So even in Eastern traditions where we believe in reincarnation and not just death, we're still hearing, because you are flawed, you've got to make up for it. When Christ did what he did, he said, I just proved you are not flawed. Whoever was able to manifest that one, whoever proved that we're actually divine, holy beings who are flawless. He pulled that off. He is unique, and it's okay that we see that. I'm not saying you have to walk around saying, I found the Lord. I don't think you have to go out and say, I'm close to Jesus, because even I don't do that. Because I know that it can confuse people. It can make people think that I'm like a Christian, and God forbid, I'm not, That's not my thing. But religion, per se, is not my thing. I can tell you all about the religions. I can tell you, this one and the wisdom. I love them all. And I especially love the people that go and devote themselves. I think every one of them has some really deeply beautiful things to it. I'm cool with that. At the same time, I'm aware that we can look at religions, we can look at philosophies and mysticisms, but at the end of the day, there's one that taught us to completely awaken. A lot of people don't know about this, but there are prophecies, stories, even of Buddha, I mean, even Muhammad has a vision at one point. Muhammad has a vision, and he said, I saw all the prophets through history, and he describes kind of a pyramidal structure. And at the top of them all was Jesus. That's a statement, that's a symbol. You understand? He's at the top of them all. But some people don't realize that Buddha also had prophecies. They were saying, you know, because the religions, Judaism, they said one day the Messiah will come. But also in the Eastern traditions, there was this concept that there will come a deliverer that frees all of mankind. So when Buddha's doing his thing, they're saying, hey, are you him? And he said, no. He said, hundreds of years from now, Jesus 500 years later, he said, there will be one. And, you know, it's not Siddhartha Gautama that's this one. He says, I'm not him. There will be another one. I think it was called Bhagwa Maitreya or Maitreya. It depends on what slang or whatever you put on it. But Bhagwa Maitreya, that's going to be the actual big deliverer. Buddha says, I'm one of 25 Buddhas. But there's going to be the one. And he says, the things that we're doing, the way he says it, Buddha says, karma is heavier than the whole universe. And he says you can't free yourself from karma, per se. Now, bear with me. He says, your techniques to free yourself from karma will not work. You're reincarnating and trying to get it that way. Your breath work and your diet and meditating. He says it will not work. Buddha says you got to clear your old karma, yes, as best you can. And then he says, and then you have to do good karma. So they're saying, so the point, Buddha, is you're telling us, with enough good karma, the scales will eventually tip and we'll be there. No, not really. You should do the good karma anyway, he tells his disciples. Do the good karma because you kind of need that. But it's still not going to free you. But this one, Bhagwa Maitreya, will come. And he says, and he's going to deliver everyone. He'll be the one that releases all the karma. And he's the only one that can do it. You understand? He says he's unique. How will we know him if we see him? Well, he'll have these wounds, these holes in his hands, his feet, and these blood marks on his forehead. Do you understand? He's prophesying that there will be one who's going to be able to pull all this off. So Jesus has a unique place, has a unique role. You know, and I love that even Buddha can say, salvation will come through this person. There's something about him. He's got the keys to the kingdom, as it were. And I love hearing that. Because every religious leader, they all had their place, they all had their role. But the fact that any of them could say, and yet, we're here still in service. There is one coming, the deliverer. And yet, in Buddhism, Judaism, and others, when he finally showed up, most of them did not acknowledge that it was him. Because we're afraid. We're actually afraid that it can happen. Because if he shows up and says, see, there's a part of us that likes to be spiritual and says, oh, I can't wait, man, we're waking up, we're all going to ascend. We keep putting names on it. And yet, when it actually happens, oh, no, wait a minute. I didn't know Ascension Day was today. Now, wait a minute. I just planted some new shrubs I want to see them grow up. My kids just went to college. I want to see them graduate. Because that's what life's all about. Seeing them with that ridiculous square hat and throwing it up in the air and all that. That's what I'm on earth for. You see, and those are called attachments. We're actually afraid of the day of ascension because we have reasons that we think are still to be here, are still valuable to us. They're not valuable to the God self. They're actually only valuable to our ego. So, people in their ego will actually create ways to stall their own ascension. So Jesus walks in and says, you know, here I am. Today, you know, heaven is before you. And they try to kill him as soon as he starts teaching. Because he's saying the kingdom of heaven is within you. You know what that means? Freedom. It means all you do is turn within and you will find God and then you're released. No, wait, we have karma to work off. It will not work. Wait, as long as we do this, as long as we do that. So Buddha was trying to tell us, even Buddha was saying, our way of trying to get out of this will not work. You see? Because we're still part of the karmic pattern. Meaning our old ways of doing things. So is there a way? Can we somehow release ourselves? Bhagwa Maitreya means white-skinned. And this is amongst darker skinned people. that we're being taught this. Buddha said, Bhagwa Maitreya. It means a light-skinned person from another land. Okay? So and then the marks and all these other things, he's telling them, one will come. Why doesn't the world celebrate that it happened? And then those that celebrate his coming worship him on a cross. So we're still hedging, you see? We only want to get into Christ, the dead one. The dead one. It's the ego that distracts. It's the ego that gets sleepy and that gets confused by these things. We have to look at the ego self. What? I'm starting to space out right now. Michael's talking about this and I'm starting to dissociate and think about other things. That's not an accident. It's so you can escape hearing what you're hearing. That the day of the Lord is at hand. It means any moment that we choose, we can awaken. Well, I'm going to work off my karma. Go ahead. Knock yourself out. And then you're going to find it doesn't work and you're going to come back in the next life and you have to do it again. And then you're going to eventually go, wow, wait, I'm having a thought here. According to this psychic I just saw, I've been on Earth 8 trillion times now and I'm still not getting it right. You know? Maybe I should just try something else. And now you're in that moment choosing to crucify the old self. You know, and all the crucifixions of life, the deaths of the old, of course they're terrible and they're difficult. But they don't have power over us, and that's why we're walking up to that cross and saying, go ahead, do what you will. Well, you know, if you don't do this, if you don't change your belief systems, I'm going to divorce you. Go ahead. Well, if I divorce you, I'm going to take the money. Go ahead. Have your way. You're still not going to have power over me. Your parents, we're going to disown you if you don't do this, and if you get a divorce, we're going to disown you. Here we go. Cool. You know, have at it. Have the courage to say, you have no power. Look at Pilate. Don't you realize I have the power to kill? You have no power that I haven't given you. That's pretty cool. I don't think you have to use all the same wording to your parents. I'm not saying it wouldn't be fun. I'm not saying it wouldn't be kind of fun, you know, kind of a cool experiment. I just don't think in most cases it's the greater good, mainly because they would not understand it. They would only take offense, which means it's not the greater good. But if I make a statement of some kind and you take offense, that's not my problem. If I say it to offend you, now it's my problem. So, like, just go ahead, you know. Have at it. If you do this, you know, I remember my dad's thing. If he gets mad at you, you better pay attention or I'm going to go in the other room and get that Bible. You knew what was coming. And I'm going to erase your name from the family Bible. No, not that. Oh, no, not that. Like, you know, he didn't understand why I didn't care. Because his generation was, oh, no, that's bad. Oh, God, you're kidding. You're kidding. Not erase my name from the family. Like, people actually think that matters. And I was like, well, let me save you the trip. I'll go erase it for you. Like, you know. The things that we think matter do not matter. By that, I don't mean you're becoming cold. I'm saying you start to realize what could possibly have power over the real self. The real self doesn't say these things to be spiteful or hurtful to people, to show them, I don't care. It's not coldness. It's an internal sense of conviction. So you don't act cold about it, because then you know your ego's still there. But you might say, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but this is what I have to do. Loving and tactful, but this is what I have to do. This is where I need to go. And have I done everything I could to prevent this from happening? That's always a good way to check in. Yeah, it feels like it. And you know that there's times when people will try to take you off track, and you just have to say, I'm staying the course. Jerusalem, you know, was a place that Jesus said, I'm going to go and they're going to kill me there. So when one apostle says, then don't go. Jesus said, just move aside. Like he's saying, don't even tempt me to steer off course because I know this is what's right. And that's a pretty heavy outcome he's going for, right? He doesn't mean you all have to be victims and go through the extremes that he went through, but he's saying, why don't you look at your own lives and see what you get out of this? Look at the metaphors. The literal, Jesus is a beautiful soul. There's a couple of records in the Roman history, a couple of records of soldiers describing him. this countenance about him. That he would be very firm and yet light. Humor. He had a sense of humor. But he could be very firm and strong. It's like, you don't mess with him. He knows. He knows what he knows. And you can't steer him off of that. But yet, there's a lightness about him. 6 foot tall, 175 pounds, long curly hair. You know, it's described in the Casey readings too. And in these Roman annals. But this long brownish hair, but sometimes golden in color. But he was lighter skinned. When people try to say, okay, well, we're going to try to do a portrait of Jesus, they almost always make him very dark skinned. They say, well, he's from the Middle East, and they're always dark. They're not, because he's from the tribe of Judah. And the tribe of Judah tended to have, at times, golden hair and light skin. As David, because the tribe of Judah is also in the lineage of David, and David was actually known to be very light skinned. Even the Irish people believe that they have a lineage from the tribe of David that have that, they call it ruddy skin, the reddish white skin. So Jesus is not dark Middle Eastern. It's a powerful being, very strong, and he knows what he knows. Now you don't have to take it too literally, but in what way do we do that? Do you really have a good conviction about what you believe? Are you willing to say, this is where I'm going, like it or not? You all have past lives, and probably every one of you have at least one where you were a spiritual warrior of some kind. You have to access that. You have to bring all your good from other lifetimes into the now. Bring it into the present now. Any horrible or difficult or not so nice lifetimes, what can I learn from that? Learn, extract the learning, the good, and let the rest go. Because that's not now. What's now is my choice to extract something of a very positive and constructive nature. Jesus had great lifetimes. He was Joseph, who was betrayed by his 12, they were 12 brothers, and he was betrayed by his other brothers. The one that is participating in the betrayal of him, when he's Joseph, the one brother that's participating is Judah, who reincarnates as Judas. So Jesus' 12 apostles are also his brothers when he's Joseph in another lifetime, and they betray him. So he doesn't say, fine, I'll never talk to you guys again. He says, I want you all as apostles. That's pretty courageous. Yeah, I want the guys that turned on me. Pretty courageous. And I'm not saying that means you should remarry your ex who's a nut. I'm saying that, do you have the courage to realize, even whatever you do, I'm still okay. I can have that much courage. I don't think you should go back to a family reunion if your family's all dysfunctional and keeping secrets. But if you did, can you find immunity? Can you find a solid core that they cannot touch? That's pretty cool. If you go and just get triggered again, you haven't proven anything to yourself spiritually. Can you kind of be in the mix? I've done that in my life where I've, brought myself to those moments of testing things, and almost always it goes really well. But it's because I feel kind of invincible. I don't go in going, okay, I'm going to try this, and I hope they don't talk mean to me. I go in, hey, man, how's it going? Oh, Michael, blah, 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 negative, negative, negative. Most of the time, and in my more mature years, it didn't matter. You see, I'll just do it. And I love standing up for people that are kind of underdogs. And when I'm teaching in churches and spiritual centers so many years, I saw people really constantly berating people that are into tantra or trying to learn about their human bodies and all that. And rather than going, yeah, shame, 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 just like spiritual people, I started teaching about it more and writing about it more and wrote a book or two about it, because I'm trying to say, bring light to this subject. And it's challenging. Because when I go into that kind of scenario and teach those kinds of folks that are into Tantra, sacred sexuality, they think I'm far too spiritual. And then the spiritual people think I'm far too sensual, but I'm still doing what I believe to be right. Don't do it if you don't think you can handle it. I'd say I handled it about 80, 90%. Still, there were moments of ouch. Still moments of regret, like bummed, like, what a bummer that these people react this way and these people, But if you're doing this to make friends, then you probably should do something else. When you're standing for the light, you are actually the minority, and you better just know that going into it. And if you don't like that idea, then stick with the crowd. Just kind of go along with the average. Jesus is a guy of conviction. He was Enoch, who builds the Great Pyramid and all this other amazing history to that. Also known as Thoth, and by other names, by other cultures. But he's Enoch. He's also Melchizedek, the priest king. He was known as the King of Peace, which is when he comes back as Jesus, they call him the Prince of Peace. These are all the things that happened in Jesus' life are things that also happened in his other lifetimes, kind of all coming together. I've shared this before, but one example is Jesus, when he's a warrior, because he's also a warrior in one of his lifetimes, Joshua, he goes and levels this place called Jericho. But he also takes over Jerusalem. When he takes over Jerusalem, he has the kings of Jerusalem brought out and hung outside the city gates, which is where he ends up crucified in his another lifetime. So a lot of what's happening to Jesus is not accidental or coincidental or just random. He actually was willing to say, I'm going to walk through even my own karmas of the past and show you it has no power over you. So he was fulfilling, that's one of his meanings. I am here to fulfill the law. How many of us are willing to do that? How many of us are willing to say, okay, this isn't going to be easy, but I'm going to step through this. Even Buddha pulled that off, where he said, his apostles, his disciples are saying, hey, if you're Buddha, why are people mean to you? He says, because I have had lifetimes where I wasn't very nice. That's called taking responsibility. He doesn't have to beat himself up over it. He's just going, it is what it is. So you don't just have to say, my ex is bad, I'm good. My boss is bad, I'm good. Because the attempt to make yourself wonderful and beautiful, but a victim, is an unhealthy thing. You are wonderful and innocent and beautiful, but not the you that's a victim. When you can say, isn't that funny? That my low self-worth is the thing that creates a boss that won't give me a raise? Isn't that funny that carrying my genetic stuff is adding to this? Isn't this funny that my family patterns are still leaking through me and making me not have more finances or better health? It's to own it and laugh at it is what helps you resurrect from it. A lot of us that have gotten it, we find ourselves not acting like our family anymore. Our brothers and sisters kind of look like they're born from those people. They act like they're born. They have the behavioral patterns and other patterns. But look at us. Some of us don't. I mean, some of us just feel almost like we must have been adopted. And that's because you've woken up enough to seem different from the old pattern. That doesn't mean if you happen to look like your mom, you should think, oh my God, I'm a failure. No, I'm just saying it's one way to know. More importantly than your looks shifting are your behaviors the same as them. And when they are, laugh at it and go, wow. Like many comedians have said, I became my mother. I'm just like my dad. Laugh at it and then change it. That, just like that person, that doesn't really feel good, so what can I do about it? That's a person that's accessing their power, especially their power to choose. So Jesus is also Asaph, a guy we read about in the Old Testament. Asaph is a minstrel to King David. So Asaph is actually hanging out with David, helping him through his difficult times and singing songs to him and helping him write something called the Psalms. So Asaph is actually helping David write the Psalms. Praise to God. So David, as a human, is going, I'm struggling. And Asaph is going, yeah, and isn't it great? Because even during times of suffering, there's God. You're right. So Asaph is there, turning David on spiritually. So David's having to anchor and ground spirituality even at the level of humanness. Because he's a king, meaning you running your household, you owning a business. David's showing that we can bring God into the darkest dark. And Asaph, who becomes Jesus later, Asaph, which is where we get Aesop's fables. Asaph, the Greek name is Aesop. So Asaph is helping David wake up, just like there's a guy named Arjuna in the Hindu tradition who's talking to a guy named Krishna. Krishna is Christ, or Christ did. So Arjuna is telling a story about I have personal struggles, but I've got the Christ, the Krishna, talking to me. God is advising me even in human things. So this is not about becoming so spiritual we don't have humanness. It's about bringing spirituality in to the humanness. Not in the way some people think. In a way that we illuminate our humanness so much, there's basically none left. Not because we're not human, but because we're in the human with no judgment of the human. People that think they're going to ascend out of the human into the spiritual are still trying to escape. And I would take the advice of Buddha, which is, none of your plans for salvation will work. You know? They will not. And Jesus in A Course in Miracles concurs. None of your ideas, none of your plans. Oh yes, if I just eat a certain way, do a certain breath work, the ships are coming to get me. If they wanted you, they'd have been here by now. They don't want you. You know? I'd rethink that. I'd rethink that if I were you. Call me silly, call me a downer, but they're not here yet. So you might have to think about, then if I'm not going to get to escape by some beings coming to get me, maybe I'm supposed to become the presence of holiness. Maybe I have to actually work at it by becoming the presence of holiness. How do you do that? Well, of course you have to wear white only and eat only certain foods. No. Believe it or not, all your efforts are nothing. Love and forgiveness, if you want to say any effort at all, it's love and forgiveness. But not because it's a duty, a task, a ritual. Love is who we are. Forgiveness is what love does. So forgiveness isn't another act or ritual like trying to breathe a certain way, eat a certain way. Forgiveness is what love does. So when I'm forgiving, I'm actually being myself. My real self. See? It's not a doing, it's a being. That's why forgiveness is different than all the other tactics or techniques. There's a really cool story. You know, it's kind of just a little made-up story of once upon a time. So this person sees this vision, and they see people in heaven and people in hell. And in both parties, there's this long table of people in heaven, a long table of people in hell. This person sees this vision of both. And all the people have really long arms. They can't reach their mouth, and they're all at this feast. I'm just paraphrasing the story, but they're all at this big feast. And they're all with long arms, and the people in heaven look very healthy. And the people in hell are starving. So this person says to their guide, I don't understand. They all look the same, and yet these people are starving, and those people are healthy. And their arms are too long to be able to eat. Both of them, equal. We all have problems. We all have issues, you see, is what it's saying. Then why are people in heaven looking healthy when they have all the same issues? And it says, because the people in heaven are using their arms to feed each other, and the people in hell keep trying to feed themselves, and the arms don't reach. So they're starving and they're thriving. When we can understand that you can only awaken by your ability to see the good and worthiness in others, you can't just say, I got it. Oh my God, I got it. I heard this lecture from Michael and I read this book or whatever it happens to be, and I got it. I had a meditation. I got it. We're holy beings, and I got it, so I'm holy now. Good luck, everybody. You already failed. You can only realize, you can have an awakening about your value, but it will not become realized and integrated until you live it with others. Others aren't even there. But it appears like there's others. And when I see others in the world, thinking others with issues and others with good things and bad things and ups and downs, when I think I see black and white, skin, when I think I see others, I'm seeing a reflection of a non-oneness. The only way I can cure that, and oneness is heaven and God. So the only way I can actually cure my mental illness called separation from God, which is only a thinking problem, the only way I can correct that is to learn to see you as reflections of myself. And if I can love you thoroughly enough, I don't even see a you anymore. All of a sudden, when I see the real you, I become you. Not I become your problems. It's I don't see your problems. I don't see you as a problem. Any problem you may have is a cry for love, so let me give that to you through forgiveness. Let me offer that through patience, tolerance, forgiveness. Let me see beyond what I thought I saw a minute ago. It doesn't mean we ignore or pretend there aren't challenges. But even if I see somebody physically harming another, let me step in and help stop them. But never judge them for it. Never hate them for it. Never say, you're a bad person and this is a good person. Drawing line in the sand and making boundaries is a healthy thing. But people still think that the boundaries means you're better than the other person. In a way, you should feel sorry, not just for them when you see issues with other people. You should be feeling sorry for yourself because you're incapable of seeing their holiness. Dang it. You know, I saw this guy today and he was being mean and cutting people up. He was all rude. And I was like, wow, yeah, you know, he is mean. He is bad. And you say, but dang it. It's not, dang it, that person's bad. It's more like, dang it, I missed that one. I failed to see their holiness. Now, if you keep it as I failed, now you're judging yourself and we didn't get anywhere anyway. But to be able to go, isn't that funny? I got hooked for a moment there. The Ho'oponopono kind of an idea or prayer. Ancient Lemurian prayer, also Hawaiian, thought to be Hawaiian. And that is, wow, you know, you started believing that for a minute. You started agreeing with people that that person's a jerk. Oh, I'm sorry. In my mind to that person, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. In reality, I love you and thank you. You see? That short prayer, it's very responsible. Most forgiveness prayers have nothing to do with responsibility, which means it can't forgive. As long as there's a me overlooking your problems, that's not actually forgiveness. It's a good start, but it's not the end of forgiveness. Forgiveness ends with there is no other. And as I judge you, I judge myself, meaning as I judge you, I'm now stuck in the problem too. So my ability to love and forgive and release you, I'm also released. You see? So there's a lot of very deep symbolism to all this. And Jesus was saying, life is like a mythology. And you have mythologies of spring coming, which means a new life. All these are mythologies, meaning not, yes, they're also literal events, a lot of them, but that they symbolize a deeper mythology of the soul. So what he says is, I'm going to fulfill the mythology of you waking up. Why is waking up a mythology? Because you never really went to sleep. Okay? So it's time to wake up. Let me play that role, he's saying. And I just love that. I never think of myself as, hey, guess what? I'm awake. And you know, everything I do is perfect channeling of the Christ. No, I just do my best to do that. And as long as we can all say we do our best, don't judge yourself when you slip. But just, are you even trying? Are you even doing your best to get to that place of awakening? Live it. Live the Christ life. In all things, though. What does live the Christ life mean? Does it mean you surround yourself with a band of people and walk around the world, you know, preaching? No. Be a mom, but live the Christ life as a mom, as a dad, as a boss, an employee. Live the Christ life in every way possible. And it doesn't mean pious, per se. But do look at the deeper symbolisms. What would the Christ self do today? What would the Christ say today? As best as I can. You know? There was somebody I saw somewhere, and they were in line. I think I shared this with a couple of you before, but they were in line somewhere, and a bunch of people were in line to get in this place. And this one couple walked up and just kind of walked around everybody else to the front, thinking, well, you know, we'll just kind of look like we're doing something casual here, and then they're going to get in first. And it was like the people towards the front of the line are looking at each other like, and they didn't know what to do, and they felt uncomfortable. Like, this is a test. Can you speak up? Well, darn right. No. Can you speak up without hatred? Well, no. Some of us know how to speak up, but not without hate or anger. So they're all struggling, and I'm watching these people like, oh God, you know, in anger and sadness, confusion, bewilderment, just like with our families or our partners or whatever. We don't know how to handle it. So I said, excuse me, these folks are a little concerned because you've walked to the front of the line and the line's actually back there. And they got angry at me. And they got reactive and said, you know, to me and all that. And I thought, get behind me, Satan, but I didn't say it. No. So, but I stand up and I'm saying, you know what? Great, thanks for sharing. But still, the back of the line's over there. Stood up, just stand strong. They moved to the back, grumbling. They only moved slowly towards the back so that it didn't look like they were giving in. And I can see through that too. I saw them a week later and I apologized. Did I need to? No, I wasn't in the wrong, but I did it anyway just to create an extra sense of healing. I said, by the way, I want to apologize. They go, what? I said, well, that thing that happened. And they said, well, that's okay. I said, no, really, I said, there was a bit of discomfort, and I was trying to speak on behalf of that. It wasn't like I was trying to correct you or be mean, but, so I still did that. Even when we're not wrong, it's okay to bridge with people and say, hey, sorry about that. You might have left a partner that was terrible to you. And you don't say, sorry, I left you because I should have stayed. That's not what you mean. It's more like, sorry that happened. Because according to the Ho'oponopono prayer, you're saying, we all co-create these things, and I'm sorry for my part. And when you do that, people will ease some of their tension of being defensive and having to protect themselves and their egos. By just that little bit of graciousness, great things can happen. And you never know. Now I've seen those people since, and we're like, hey, how's it going? We're like almost friends. But it didn't start that way. Is there anybody on this planet that you would not welcome into the kingdom of heaven with you? And it's okay if there are some. It's okay, be honest. Because as soon as you see them, you can start working on them. You want to pretend there are none like that, but you don't want to think about those individuals? It's already done. It's already set up. I'd rather just own, yeah, there are some. And what if you're really good at this and you say, no, there are none? I would still say, but there might be. Because I'm going to stay open that there might always be a little something out there still for me to work on. Because if there's not, I'm good. And if there is, I'm open. That way, no stone left unturned. We're going to move into a brief meditation now. I pray that today's made good sense. And I pray that this reaches into your heart and your understanding. Jesus was a wonderful individual because of his choice. Not because he's special. Because of his choice to believe that there's something more than the human experience. By choosing such, he discovered it. Because seek and you will find. Then he says, and all I've done you will do and more. Not you might. You will do. Because I am you, he's saying. And if I've woken up, so have you, a part of you. Now all we need to do is fan that spark into a flame, and you become the living Christ as well. Some centering breaths. Let's all center first into the core of our being. The awareness of who we really are. Not who a teacher tells you are, not what a book tells you, just who you really are. And let the Divine Mother, let the Holy Spirit of God help us figure out what that is. To become aware of what that is, who that is. It's love. I'm this beautiful, bright being. And on earth, it's true, on earth, I sometimes have forgotten. So in this moment, we want to make amends. We want to clear things. Please do your best not to defend or rationalize any of this. Picture, if you would, anybody outside of yourself that you've struggled with. Anybody that's been wonderful to you, breathe in their essence and feel grateful. Absolutely grateful for good people, because that gives you a little bit like an oasis filling up your canteen. It gives you some extra reserves to handle life. But in the room, imagine people you've been challenged with. And you don't have to figure it with your head. You can just say, I'm open. And any images that pop in. Because we're already saying, Holy Spirit of God, you show us. There's some obvious ones I can put in there, but you show us. And then if somebody's face pops in, don't brush it off and go, well, that's not one. If they popped in, trust that it's probably for a reason. And don't judge it or analyze it. Any and all individuals in this moment, we affirm, by the power of God given to us, we have the power and the right to call in all unhealed patterns, people, relationships. We call all of these in here now, because this is for the greater good of healing. Family members, even unknown individuals, even from other lifetimes and dimensions, all challenges, all unhealed pieces to this room now. To everyone I've ever known, and even to those I've never even met, If for any reason you have felt confused or hurt by me in any way, intentionally or unintentionally, please hear and absorb my heart, my feeling, my prayer. Just feel you're saying that to everyone. To anyone I've ever hurt, I'm sorry. It was not the intention of my true self. I'm sorry if I was weak and caused any harm. I'm sorry if I was too confused or doubtful. I'm sorry if I was faithless in knowing who you really are and who I really am. Please forgive me. Every relationship from my life, my past, every interaction, I'm sorry. If it was anything but perfect Christ presence, I'm sorry. Onto the altar I put our interaction. Not even evaluating how much somebody was right or wrong. None of that matters, because my heart is sorry that it even happened, that we would have any experience shy of divinity. Please forgive me. In truth, I love you. And I thank you. Even if you refuse this healing with me, your real self welcomes it. So, either of us can like it or not, but it's already happening. I'm bidding farewell to all my relationships where I have possibly done any harm. Consciously or not, purposefully or not, does not matter. I'm just letting it all go. Because surrender is an important part of crucifixion. I don't have to be crucified by having another challenging relationship. I'll just do it now. I am willingly crucifying by surrendering all hurts. And to everyone who feels they have hurt or confused me in any way, intentionally or not, hear from my soul. I love you. Even if I was hurt or angry, the Christ in you, I love you. I'm not saying I love and welcome hurt. I'm saying that's not the real. The real you, I love. The real me, I love. And I forgive you. Not gratuitously, not due to obligation. I'm saying that in any way I or you were outside of our Christ self and coming from the ego self, the hurt, the wounded, the reactive, the defensive, that I am willing to forgive because it's not the real you. And I seek and choose to find and know the real you. And it's the real you that I love. I love you. I'm not saying this to the hurtful you. I'm saying this to the real you. I love you. I love you and thank you. Thank you for being here in this process to help me see the truth and to release my needs for crucifixions and your need. My judgments of you would crucify you, and if you're crucified and you're part of God's child, then I'm crucified with you. Instead, let's all get off the cross and be free. And as we close with a heartfelt prayer. Remember, surrender is a form of crucifixion. And after we crucify the old self, we will resurrect, guys. We will all resurrect into a new self. So as fully as possible, I surrender all that I have believed and need not have believed, and all I could have believed but refused to believe. I surrender it. I surrender all that I have thought and need not have thought, and all I could have thought but did not choose to think. I surrender all I have felt and need not have felt, and all I could have felt but refused to feel. I surrender all I have ever said, but need not have said, and all that I could have said, but refused to say. And I surrender all I have ever done, all in any lifetime that I have ever done, and need not have done, and all that I could have done, but refused to do. I am empty. Surrendering all the could have, should haves, didn'ts, all of it gone. I'm empty. And on this sacred, peace-based Easter, I choose to be born again. The Easter egg is me. And I'm breaking out of that shell, the old life, the old images, my masks. I am not to be on this earth a lineage of a family, a karmic lineage, a genetic lineage. All of these things, as real as they seem, they're just seemingly more and more powerful stories to keep a shell around me. Not today. The shell breaks away, and that birth, the symbol of the new little chick, is me, the birthing of my soul into maturity. The Divine Mother helps me birth this new self today. But I call upon you, Holy Spirit of God, be with me in all that I think, say, and do, all that I believe, so that we can keep this going, not just for minutes, but from now on, this is my path. This is my conviction. I choose to birth the Christ self with you today. Thank you for helping me with this process. Continue giving me the courage and the strength to know that the Christ self can now mature fully into this world, and I can be the Christ on earth. And in that, I know I cannot do it if I'm unwilling to see everyone else as that same Christ self. I am part of God, and I am very holy. I am part of God, and I am very holy. And breathe that in for a moment. Easter is not the commemoration of a man crucified, and not even a man resurrecting, but us all remembering. And then a new life is birthed. If the old ego me created a life, clearly the new me will create a life, and it'll be very different. Now the Divine Mother, as my guide, my teacher, and my healer, will show me how to create. If that's that new little chick self that's coming forward, that new little birth, then I want to protect that little being. I want to take care of it. I want to feed it things that help it grow. I'm not going to feed it toxic stuff of this world. Judgments. Not talking about stuff. I'm talking about thoughts. I'm going to surround this little new birth with great things. Healthy friends, healthy family, healthy relationships, healthy thoughts, words, and deeds. I'm going to take care of this wonderful child, Christ child, even more than I would my own human child, because it's all this beautiful perfection. Even a human child might come into this life with karma, and as a parent we try to juggle that for the child. There is no karma in the Christ self. So we're allowed to just enjoy, experience this journey. And I give thanks for all people in advance that will make this easier every day. And all who would seemingly cause a challenge to this new experience, I forgive you in advance, because I'm also forgiving myself for reflecting as you my doubts. In God there are none, and so we are part of God. We are very holy. We close with, God is, I am, we are, amen. God is, I am, we are, amen. God is, I am, we are, amen. One more time. God is, I am, we are, amen. A last closing breath or two. Deep, vivid. Giving thanks for this experience and our ability to understand to a new level. And so it is. Thank you. All right. Possibly a different kind of Easter message than some of you are used to. All right. So we're going to take a moment and we're going to do our closing song. Before that, we'll ask if anybody has any feedback. And while we're getting ready, we're going to take up our donations. If you're watching online, you can please support. Send donations as you can, as you will. And even if you can't, you don't believe you can, please do hear our prayer so that you can help heal that piece of your life. Because you can. You can deserve more and believe more and experience more of God even in the physical manifestation of prosperity. So we're going to pray for you even if you feel challenged in that area. But if you do donations here or from afar, do know that donations every Sunday, they go in these blue bags. Any extra donations, they go in the wicker baskets. Those are for extra projects like the new garden that we've done. Just be as generous as you can is all we say. And if you're watching online, people have asked, it doesn't matter, even if it's $5 or whatever it is, do what you can to support. But if you feel like you feel called for greater support, you can become a sponsor or a pledger here at Unity of Sedona. You can do that on my site directly if that's what you prefer, or through Unity. It's great either way. It's fine either way. But the sponsors are people that choose a program, like the children's program or the cafe program and all that. A pledger is somebody that just donates and says, you guys can use it at Unity however you want. So just see what feels right for you. Okay? And lastly, local and abroad, in a month, or in a matter of weeks actually, I think it is. Is it weeks now? We have, in 1 week, a couple weeks from now, a few weeks from now, that's May, isn't it? So in May, latter part of May, we've got a 5-day mastery intensive here at Unity of Sedona. Same week we have David Pramal coming up in concert. So you kind of could come into town and have all that extra going on for 1 week, all right? All righty. Our prosperity prayer. If you don't know the words, it's probably posted on the internet, but also it's on your bulletins. Hear the prayer even if you don't believe you have enough. Then hear the prayer so we can help heal that for you. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Thank you. Now, before we're done, anybody want to share? It takes about a minute for them to pass the bags around. Anybody want to share what you learned or heard today that might make the most difference for you? Yes?
I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
And I felt your message was directed at me specifically. Like there was no one else.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. She felt that in the heart, the message of today. Yes?
In relationships that ended in kind of a bad way for me, instead of looking at something that made me feel anger toward that person, I started looking at the things that I loved about.
Nice.
There's a lot of peace in that.
Nice. Looking back at old relations and trying to see them from loving eyes. It doesn't mean you're justifying or defending or denying or minimizing hurtful things. We're not saying that. Jesus even says in the Course, when people act insanely, don't be too surprised because people are insane. But he says your job is to try to see something in them beyond the insanity, beyond the judgments and the hurtful behavior. He's saying underneath there's still this light trying to come out, but their ego's in charge. Don't pretend that the ego thing's not happening, but are you willing to see beyond it? Anyone else? Yes?
Love is a simple statement. Love is who I am. And forgiveness is what love does.
Love is who I am. Love is who we are. And then forgiveness is what love does. See, if there's a doing necessary, the only doing ever necessary, ever, is forgiveness, because the only thing that ever seems to have happened other than the creation of our beauty is we thought we separated from that. So the correction is called forgiveness. So anytime things are happening in the world, they're just mirroring to us those, moments of angst that mirror that we believe we're separate. So if we can forgive which doesn't mean pretend something that something didn't happen, but am I willing to see that it's a greater lesson for me, get the lesson, give the rest to God, and then see the light in that person beyond their ego self? That's forgiveness. It's a process. And there's resistances to that, so it does take a little bit of a moment here and there to get that. It might happen in cycles, it might happen in stages, but stay with the conviction of getting there. Yes?
There is no karma in the Christ consciousness.
Yeah, in Christ consciousness. See, even all the old school, one of them's the wages of sin or death, so you're going to die. The others, you're going to come back again and again. In Christ, and it's the only one, to awaken the Christ, which is through love and forgiveness, there's no karma. People say, well, I'm looking forward to the law of grace. How are you going to find grace without awakening to the real self? People are waiting for the law, some holy being to give them grace. And those beings are saying, no, you are grace. And the reason you can't see it, feel it, find it is if you're still in judgment. So grace awaits, but not someone bestowing it on you. I'm just figuring, one day I'm praying for grace. And God's going, okay, cool, go for it. Okay, then give me grace. Well, I did. But I'm not feeling grace. Come on, bring it. I did. Well, then, if you could speak to God directly and hear the voice answering, it would be, so why am I not feeling grace? Because grace will not be seen. It doesn't get bestowed. It's there, but you won't see it until you practice love and forgiveness. Oh, that. Okay, never mind. I'll try a different God then. I want a God of shortcuts. It's in the realm of ridiculous. Thank you for being with us. Please stand for a closing song. And those of you watching from afar, not just from me, from everybody here, right, guys?
Yes.
From all of us, honestly, we wish you well. We know that some of you are out there celebrating this holiday, and some of you are struggling. Honestly, some of you are alone. Some of you have gone through, are going through, or might go through some challenges. Understand you are not alone in this. Please get that. And if you celebrate with us. We'll celebrate with you. But if you're challenged, let us help you. In the crucifying of the old, the new self comes about. And we pray in advance that your awakening is here. And we see it for you. Right?
Yes.
And so it is. Peace be with all of you. Let's celebrate.